Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to an extra special Same Old Arsenal podcast. How could we not do a show about our new and exciting midfielder, Mr. Declan Rice? Now, I'm just going to give you a little bit of context, and you have to excuse me because I'm absolutely shattered, but a little bit of context of how this has all come about. The man below me, Mr. Alger, jumped into my DMs about 6 weeks ago, Al, was it?
I
And
think so.
said,
Yeah, when I'd been told that the deal had definitely been done. Yeah.
jumped and went, get me on your podcast. I'm going to bring a brilliant guest on. So for about 2 weeks, me, Anthony, and Alan have been in this WhatsApp group going, it could be today. Are you free tonight? It could be tomorrow. Are you free tomorrow? And Arsenal then went and announced it 10 days later after we've all been chatting that Declan Rice has finally signed. So, this is how this pod has come about. Let me introduce everyone. Right, welcome back. My captain, my podcast brother, who I've missed all summer, Mr. James Cook. How are you, darling?
I'm very well, thank you. Honestly, I don't think I could be any better. I've just been looking at pictures of Declan Rice training today, and it's still it's just not sinking in. It feels totally surreal at the minute, but really pleased to be back podding on this really special show tonight. Apologies, I've not been about as much as I'd like to have been this summer, but it's a good one tonight.
It's going to be good. And who I alluded to down below, friend of the show, friend of me, and just an all-round good gooner, Mr. Alan Algar. Welcome back.
Oh, what an introduction! Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be back. Great to be back.
And because of you, the man to the right of me, or whatever way it looks like on this podcast, is Mr. Anthony Gale, who, for the older people here, because a lot of people don't know, is the son of Tony Gale, ex West Ham midfielder, wasn't he, Anthony? Defender, sorry. I'm getting confused with Declan.
Yeah.
I know he's a defender.
League winner.
Tony
Premier League
Gale.
winner with Blackburn.
Oh, was he? Oh, yeah. We'll go
Winner
into
with
all
Blackburn.
this.
Yeah,
We could
yeah.
be here all night, guys. This is going to go late, I'm telling you. Anthony Gale, who is Declan Rice's, was early years trainer, coach, mentor, and now friend, and probably a little bit upset slightly as Anthony is a West Ham fan. Welcome to the Same Old Arsenal podcast.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
What's it been like the last couple of weeks? Every minute me going, it could be tonight. Are you free? It could be tomorrow. Are you free? We all knew he'd signed. I mean, I was confident he'd signed, but Arsenal were just like dragging this out like a saga. Don't tell me he's frozen.
Was that to me?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm talking to you.
I wasn't sure if that was to me or Alan. I wasn't too sure.
Well,
I
the
think
three
it
of
was.
us have been in a WhatsApp group, haven't we? Just like
Yeah, it's been continuous, but I think as a West Ham fan, you knew it was going to happen. It was when it was going to happen, and obviously, who was he going to go to? I mean, he is at the moment, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the best midfield players in the world. I believe our best midfield player for England. I think he's one of the first names on the team sheet, and he's been absolutely outstanding for West Ham United Football Club over the last 10 years. His performances, also just lifting a European trophy at the end of it, just topped it all off. I think it was only what the young man deserved after the service that he's given the club and the performance levels. I think he's been a fantastic example of and exemplary to all young players in the way that he's conducted himself and he's performed.
Well, I'm going to start at the beginning. First of all, let me welcome to everybody in the chat room. Thanks for joining us. I know it's a little bit later than normal. And I would like to do a big shout out to the three guys from the Gay Gooners last night who came on and have just had a fantastic response to that show. So you can catch up with that on our audio as well. Anthony, so what are we getting for 105 million quid? Talk to us about his early years and what you saw as a player.
when I first started working with Declan, it was at Chelsea Football Club. I was a coach there. I worked in the development centres. I worked with the sevens, the eights, the under nines, and working with him from a very early age, we could all see that the young man had a talent. And I think one thing that Chelsea Football Club do exceptionally well within their academy is they play all their players in different positions. They play them all over the pitch. They play them in defence. They play them in midfield. They play them up front. So their awareness and their development is second to none in the way that they produce their players. And Declan, how comfortable he was playing in defence, in midfield. You'd even put the boy in goal, to be honest. His enthusiasm, his energy, everything about him was special. And he's, it's great to see what's happening with him at the moment, because the energy that he has. I mean, he's a type of boy that even now, if there's a football or if there's a ball around and his mates are playing, he'll want to go and join in with them because he just loves the game that much. And anyone that's ever played with him or coached him or been a part, because I'm just a very small fragment of Declan Rice's career, a very tiny fragment, because there are so many people that have played such a positive influence in who he is and what he's become. Obviously him being the main one, but what Arsenal are getting is they're getting, for me, the best midfield player at the moment in world football, and I would be over the moon if I was a gunner and I was getting him. I mean, I spoke to Alan about it, and I know we spoke just before about what to expect. But I remember when Bold and Adams had Patrick Vieira got put in front of them in that season, which Arsenal fans will always remember. I think now Gabriel and Saliba are now getting Declan Rice put in front of them. It's going to be formidable. It's going to be extremely strong. His instincts in front of them too, after being a centre half for such a period of his career, how he snuffs out danger, how, he'll all, as well with Arsenal last season. I think Arsenal's average possession was between 60 and 65% in their Premier League season. West Ham's was 40%. We play a deeper line. We rely very much on countering teams. Arsenal are front foot, possession based. And I think now, even being a West Ham fan, and I know it'll probably hurt other West Ham fans hearing this, but we're going to see an even better Declan Rice go into a club, I think, that will suit his style of play.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I could listen to this all night. The fact that you've mentioned like Vieira, Petit, Adams and Bold, and we're going to have Saliba, Gabriel and Rice. That is football porn, Anthony, right there. The fact is, honestly, Cooks, just talk, because I know you're over the moon as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually got a question for you, Anthony, because I think there's been a lot of speculation amongst Arsenal fans as to where he's actually going to play in this team, whether he's going to come in and do that party role, the number 6 in front of, like you say, Saliba and Gabriel, or if he's actually going to disperse Xhaka, who's just left, and play in that more box-to-box left 8 role. I personally think wherever he plays, he could excel in either one. But I think if he was to play in that left 8 role, we might see that other dimension to his game, which we saw in glimpses at West Ham last season. I mean, that goal he scored in the Europa League where he just ran the length of the pitch and put it in the back of the net. That's what I've got visions of him doing at Arsenal. So from your point of view, I mean, like I say, I think he could do a brilliant job in either position. But where do you think he'd be best suited at Arsenal?
It's a good question. I mean, it's you got two different styles, obviously, with Moyes and with Pep. I mean, Moyes is quite pragmatic, and you've got Pep you got Arteta that has, been worked under Pep, and he's got that flamboyant style. Arsenal play some of the most attractive football at the moment. I think no one can argue that. We all are very defensive over our clubs and who we support, but I think to watch Arsenal last season and the way that they played excited people. And I think that with Declan's versatility, his knowledge, and where he's played, I think you hit the nail on the head, James. He could play either role. He could play either role and he could play it comfortably. He's got the ability to score a goal, which he's shown this season. He can comfortably sit in front of a back four. But I think what the good thing with Declan will be this year is he actually has the ability to go toe for toe with these midfield players. You know, he's been playing in a midfield with no disrespect, not as high a standard players. You know, it's and that's not having a pop at West Ham midfield or West Ham as a football club or any other club. But when you play with better players, everyone in football knows it gets the best out of you. And I think now when he's in that environment with that style of play, he could play either just as comfortable. And that's not me sitting on the fence. That's me just being straight. If he played either one of those roles, he could do it with his eyes shut. That's how confident I am with the young man and his knowledge and his quality. And the best thing about him is he will, you know, anyone that's ever coached Declan, anyone that's ever been involved in his development, he will be on Arteta's every word. He'll respect him. He'll run through a wall for him. You know, you look at the way he's been with David Moyes this season when it's got tough. You know, he's been there. He's defended David Moyes every step of the way and he's backed his manager, and he'll do the same now under Arteta. He'll back Arteta and you know, Arsenal fans will grow to really love this lad.
Alan, you've spent a lot of years at West Ham being a Gooner, but obviously for work reasons. And you've been banging on about Declan Rice for anyone who would ever listen to you about how good he is. I mean, he's wanted to bring him to Arsenal, Anthony, every season. That's for sure.
Well, I sort of have this claim that I'm some amazing scout. Now, I've only done it twice, and the first time was with Jamie Vardy saying we should get him in, and obviously he went and won the league with Leicester. And the second one is obviously again for work purposes. Have seen, you know, pretty much, I would say at least 50% of Declan's games in the flesh. Certainly the home games, a few of the away. Since he broke into the team in the 17-18 season. And you could tell he was of utmost quality from the start. But also behind the scenes, working with him on content, working with him, even on award ceremonies and things like that. And in fact, the end of season awards, the fans are allowed to attend the end of season awards for West Ham. The last player out the door on every single occasion I ever attended those was Declan Rice. He gave every single person in that room the attention that they wanted. He made sure every single piece of paper was signed, every single picture request was there. And that was from a very young age. That was sort of from when he won Young Hammer of the Year onwards. It was almost like you were saying, you know, who is this guy? Who is this guy over there? And it was actually funny because I remember speaking to Anthony's dad, Tony, who is an ambassador at West Ham. And he said, I tell you what, he said, that is the mark of this kid. He said, not only is he going to be a very good player, he's going to be a very good person as well. And you could see that around the club when you started to watch him more and come to see exactly everything he's about. And I just want to touch on something that Anthony said there. I know that, you know, disrespect to West Ham whatsoever, but he's been playing with a player in Souček that had a phenomenal start to his West Ham career and was one of the first names on the team sheet alongside Dec. But for about 18 months now, Souček has been well off the boil. Declan Rice has been almost doing two jobs in that midfield. And so to do those two jobs, haul them out of the relegation fight that they were in last year, almost single-handedly, and win that European trophy with all, you know, and this isn't disrespecting West Ham, with a lower quality base of players, what he's going to do with us is really exciting, really, really exciting, because from the off, you could tell that he would take the ball in a situation and always find the right pass, the intelligent pass, the pass that wasn't going to lose possession for West Ham. And again, as Anthony says, a 40% base possession team with a slightly more negative tactics, where he mostly was facing his goalkeeper a lot of the time and helping his defence out of trouble, pivoting, turning, then trying to attack. A lot of the time now, he's going to be receiving the ball with some amazing defenders either side of him. Saliba likes to carry the ball. We've seen that recently. So he's going to have ball carriers next to him. He's going to be facing the right way. He's going to be charging on. And, James said about that goal in the Europa Conference League last season. I can't wait to see that kind of thing when he's got better players around him.
Well, talking about Anthony's dad, Tony, this is just such a strange story, is that when you took me to West Ham last year, Al, and then I met Tony for a few minutes and then I left. And 2 months later, Anthony, I'm in a hotel in Tenerife and I'm having breakfast with my other half and I'm going, I think that's Tony Gale. And he said to me, no, it's not. I said, I think it is. Anyway, when I was at the buffet at the breakfast, I thought, and I looked down, he had West Ham shorts on. So I thought, I'm definitely right here. He's got to be. And I went up and spoke to him. And he must have thought this lunatic woman at the breakfast buffet on holiday. And he was and I said, obviously, I'd met you with Alan couple of months ago when Arsenal played. He was so fabulous. And if he's watching, hello, Tony. We loved our chats in the swimming pool, on the sunbeds. We were talking football so much. It was fantastic. Lovely guy, your dad. And he was a great player for West Ham as well. And I'm assuming that's where your West Ham, been brought up at West Ham is why you're a West Ham fan. Because, Anthony, tell me, you've worked at quite a few London clubs, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, going back to the first point of being a West Ham fan. I mean, I remember when he was at Blackburn, and I think I was one of the only kids in Surrey walking around with a Blackburn shirt. I think they used to look at me and think, what's going on with this boy? Bit of a giveaway when they saw Gale on the back. But it's for me. I always followed my dad wherever he went. Fulham in the earlier years, very, very early on in my life, and then obviously West Ham, and then Blackburn, then Palace, and then Maidenhead at the end of it, where he played under Alan Devonshire for a couple of seasons. But then, when it came back to it, my childhood memories always stemmed with my dad's dad, which his name was Peter. He was a black cab driver, and we used to go to all the games to watch my dad. Unfortunately, we were actually at the semi-final, the FA Cup semi-final, and Dad was sent off, I thought, very unfairly by Keith Hackett, which, if he is watching this podcast, it's one of the most awful decisions I've ever seen.
I don't think he is, but go on.
And it horrendous. But it came back to my childhood memories of going with my granddad to the games to watch my dad with my nan. My auntie would come. My mum was a part of it. My sister would come to games. It was just great memories. So hence why I become a West Ham fan, and been a West Ham fan ever since. And then in the respective clubs that I've worked for, I've worked for Fulham, I've worked for Chelsea, I've worked for Millwall, within their academy framework. And I think one thing as a coach like myself, where I haven't played professionally, it would always stem down to, well, your dad's a pro. What have you done? Why are you in football? What, because of your dad? It's a common theme and gets a bit boring when you hear it now. But I've worked with every category now of player from ages 5 up to 35. So I've done 7 to 11s, 12 to 16s, 16s to 21s, and then obviously senior football as well, where I was the manager of a non-league side, which my dad was the chairman for the time I was there. So we did that together. So, I worked across the whole pyramid really to understand the player in its entirety from the start point to the end.
So currently, do you work for yourself? Because I know you train Alan's son, the next Gooner, obviously, that's going to be employed for 105 million quid, Al.
Looking at Alan's face in the bottom left.
Oh, he wants to be a goalkeeper, does he?
He's a keeper, yeah. He's a keeper, yeah.
Bless him.
So I work. I do two things. I work for Nigel James Elite Coaching, which is with Nigel James, who his organisation is I would say the best of the south of England. It develops boys and girls from the ages of 6 all the way through to the ages of 18, where I'm one of his coaches. I do that, and that's evening based. My daytime work is based around working with players. I work with players in academies. I work with players also in non-league, but the whole structure and frame of it is to try and find the level of the player. So, I've had boys go into National League clubs this week, step 2 sides, step 3 sides, step 4 sides, step 5. I've also got boys that have gone back in. I work with some of the professional lads. I've got a couple of boys currently at Brentford B, a couple of boys at Palace. I've got another one actually at West Ham at the moment who I think an awful lot of in the under 11s called Harry Holloway. He could be the next one coming through. He's playing under 12, so remember that name.
He's got a great name for Arsenal.
Absolutely, I was just going to say that, Holloway Road.
Well, I'll keep that name. I'll keep that name quiet because West Ham fans won't like me if they come in and try and get him as well. So, but no, it's. I've got a great life of which I get an opportunity to work with good people like Nigel, and also work with great people like Alan. Where I work with my basis is I build a relationship, obviously, with Alan and his son Matthew, and we work together. And I work with his family to try and find Matthew's level. And he comes in once or twice a week. He's been doing exceptionally well, training well. I'm not just saying it because Alan's in my bottom left, but he's, and open up doors and opportunities for the young man, but not just to grow him as a player, but to grow him as well as a human being, and not just giving them football lessons, but life skills that these boys all need.
Well, the thing is, he was let go by Chelsea, wasn't he, Declan? And then went to West Ham. So when you're training Declan Rice at the age of 7, 8, 9, obviously you'll see the potential because that's your job, and you'll be able to spot that. But did you ever think that it would cost, when you're kicking the ball with him, training him, over 100 million quid, regardless of what club he was going to go to, 100 million pounds? I think personally he's worth every single penny. I think he's going to bring exactly what you said about the defensive midfield in front of the defenders for us. I think that's where he'll play mainly. I don't think he'll play where Cooks was discussing. I'm not the manager, we'll have to wait and see. But when did you see his potential? What age?
That age group or that crop of players that Chelsea had at that time. Look at Reece James, how well Reece James is doing now. For me, he's the best right back in the country. People will have their debates, but he's the best right back in the country. Look at Mason Mount as well, who was in there at that time, and you got Declan that was in there at that time, and all them boys at that time. I think people knew what a special age group it was. Everyone knew how special these boys were coming through. And I think what makes Declan so special is the fact that when he got released by Chelsea and then he went then to West Ham and showed the character that he did to work as hard as what he did, because when he goes through, these boys go through their PHV, which is their peak height velocity, which is their maximum rate of growth. So young men grow at different stages. I went through my rapid rate of growth. I was 6'4" at 11, so I think I did my growing then. But these boys, Declan was going through big growth changes in those years and found himself on the back end of being released at Chelsea. And after going into West Ham, he was a centre half. Been made then into obviously a midfield player. Showed his character was tremendous. I started working with him in the off season in that time at around 15, 16, 17, 18, in those ages, and was working with him in the off season. And his enthusiasm, honestly, then was the same as what it was when it was 7, 8 and 9. And to see that in a player then, it's just so refreshing. You finish a session and he'd just want another hour. And then he'd want another hour, and then he'd want to do free kicks, and then he'd want to do finishing, then he'd want to do heading. And his energy levels and passion for football is just, if there's a football there, he'll want to play it. And when you see young kids as well, they're young kids just joining in grassroots, and Declan's walking past them, he'll join in. They give him high fives. He'll, and it's credit to his parents and everyone as well, the way that he's been brought up as a young man. But he's, did I think he'd be that much money? You never know a young man's going to be that much money. But I think when you're as good a person as what he is, and as good a human being, and he's got as good as family and support mechanism with his brothers that he's got, and his family and his partner, he's got a real good grounding, and it's good to see him doing so well. Really is. He deserves it, the boy.
I'm just so excited. I'm so excited. And the way you were talking, when you said about Mason Mount and that, it reminded me of the academy at United, the way Beckham skulls gigs. And you're talking the way Beckham used to talk. Where people used to talk about Beckham, he would not put the ball down. He would play 24/7 if he could. It's that dedication to the game. It was the game. It was nothing else he wanted to do. He just kicked a ball every day, every night of his life. And look what happened to David Beckham. I mean, you can't moan about how his career went. Cooks, are you excited?
Of course, I'm excited. I mean, I've got a question for the both of you, really, Anthony and Alan. I mean, I think you've both touched on what a wonderful character and human being he is. But one of the reasons why I'm personally so excited about Declan Rice coming to Arsenal is that culturally, he just embodies everything that we're doing at the club at the minute in terms of, I don't want to use the catchphrase, the class, the tradition, everything, but that trajectory that we're going on where everything just seems to be moving in the right direction. I mean, we've got a poster boy at Arsenal already in Bukayo Saka, but now we've got another one, I think, in Declan Rice. And to have someone that understands the values of Arsenal, and, when he had that opportunity to go to Manchester City as well, but obviously snubbed them to come to Arsenal, I think it says so much about the type of person he is and the type of club that he wants to play for. I mean, I suppose it's an open question, but I mean, how good is it to have someone like that coming to Arsenal?
Yeah, it's funny you should actually bookend it with the other question, because to me, I think that the way he is as a person means that he sort of gets football and he gets the traditions and he gets everything else about it. And I know that he's obviously had a good grounding with Anthony and with people around him at West Ham. And let's give West Ham a lot of credit here. I believe they are one of the traditional good clubs, if you know what I mean. And obviously they've got their history going all the way back to the tenuous claim that they won the World Cup. But obviously they had some amazing players that were part of that. And I still believe that, I think that's what Anthony was alluding to there, saying that, Declan left Chelsea, he joined West Ham, he immediately embraced everything about West Ham to the extent where you wouldn't have even thought he was at Chelsea. You'd have thought he'd have been at West Ham since he was a young lad, just because of, the way that he embraced all the tradition there, and then came up and he knew everything about it. And obviously Mark Noble took him under his wing. And I was so confident that he would sign for us, because I knew that for him, it wouldn't be a monetary decision. It wouldn't be a decision to say, well, look, I want almost a gimme treble that Calvin Phillips obviously won't be turning his nose up at, but hardly got on the pitch. I think he wants to do it the right way, and he's confident in his own ability that he can come and do it the right way with us. And that's what I love about it, because he's sort of saying, look, I buy into the tradition. Whatever anyone tells you, we are one of the top 3 clubs in the country. United and Liverpool are there. They've got the history. They've got the European trophies. We've always been third there, and I don't mind that at all. There are upstart clubs that have spent money underneath us, but they'll never buy that history, tradition, and class that the big 3 have got. And we are one of those big 3. And I think that is why I was confident that he would come to us, because he knows his football, he knows his tradition, and I think he wants to come and do it the right way. And it was around, funnily enough, another family link here, but his last game at the Emirates, he walked out with my niece, because my niece was West Ham mascot that night. And one of the funny things is that she said to me, she's 10, 11, sorry, she was 11 at the time, but she said he knows everyone at Arsenal. And it was a weird thing, because she sort of got the fact that, lots of Arsenal players were saying hello to him in the tunnel when they were waiting to go out. And there was a real vibe that people at Arsenal had sort of already knew him and had bought into him. And it was weird because I think it was only about 2 weeks after that, AFC Camden, who I've been on other podcasts with, he'd actually alluded to the fact that Arsenal were in for Rice in the January transfer window. They thought it was very unlikely because look, West Ham was struggling for in the relegation spots at the time. They were hardly going to let go of the asset because they'd have probably needed 200 million to sort of spend to get out of that relegation fight that they were in. But that is exactly where I think those links were forged. And then you saw the stuff he said about Arteta, and in fact, in all of his interviews and content with the club, does it not feel to you like he's been here ages rather than just a couple of days? And I think that's why.
I was going to mention that before I bring Anthony back in. If you watch Declan and all the videos we've seen, because it's all come out now, isn't it? There's hundreds and hundreds of videos. He walks around the ground, Anthony, with Arteta like a kid in a sweet shop. He's like, wow, look at this place. It's like his childhood dream, which I don't know if it was, obviously not, but he looks at home, he looks comfortable. And what I would like to say is when all this was mooted about him going to City, I said to my City mate, I said to everybody on social media, why would he want to go there? Why? It's easy. It's easy. You're going to win everything. So why not? Why not come and fight in a team with Saka, Erdegaard, Jesus and et al. And go for it and actually achieve, because I'm not being funny and I know I'm going to get slaughtered for this by my City mates, but it's easy going there. You're going to get a lot of money. You are going to win many trophies, but it's quite easy to do that. To come to the Arsenal and actually elevate us that extra part, which is what we needed last season, it's going to be more satisfying. Do you understand what I mean by that, Anthony?
I do. Don't worry, I'm not questioning. there's not a question there. But I think when you talk about Pep and Manchester City, I think one thing that excites people in going to City is working under Pep. And I think what we can't forget is the tutelage that Arteta has received from Pep to create what has been created at Arsenal, because it wasn't so long ago that people were calling for Arteta's head. I remember that. Some.
Never me.
Some. I'm not Arsenal through and through, so do excuse me if I get the odd bit wrong. But I think from a coach looking in and looking at what Arteta was creating, and I think anyone that watched that documentary on Prime literally fell in love with what he was trying to do with the staff, with the club, with the environment. What he did with that cameraman when he brought him into the changing room and let him speak to the players, and it was different. His whole outlook on it, and what he was looking at the club in its entirety. He wasn't looking at it in the short term. He was looking at it in the long term. So for me, the style that's been created and what's been created has been over a period of time. It's been from the roots and building it up. And who does that remind you of? That reminds you of Arsene Wenger when Wenger come in and what Wenger was trying to do. And now look at Arteta and the signings that Arsenal are making, the style that they are playing. A couple of my cousins are Arsenal fans, and obviously knowing I'm West Ham, there's a bit of banter that flies backwards and forwards. But me now with my coach's head on, with my football philosophy, with what I'm about, speaking proper football and taking the passion out of everything, people have to look at Arsenal and think they're going to be a major force this season. Not a force not a side that's just going to play nice football. I mean, if your squad was bigger last season, let's be honest, you would have got over the line, because I think anyone that was involved or been involved in football watching Arsenal last year, people wanted Arsenal to do it. People wanted good, young and energetic, front foot, possession-based side. And Arteta, and what he will like, Declan, about Arteta is his energy his enthusiasm, his hunger. He kicks every ball. You see him on the side, you see the passion, and he just breathes it. And it's exactly what Declan's like, away from the field with his game. And when you say he's walking around the ground and they look like they've known each other, they both love football. So it's only going to do that.
Just want to jump in a little bit and then I'll bring Cooks back in. I agree about the Pep, but also he was made under Arsene Wenger. Remember, he played under Arsene Wenger, so he had that tutelage, as you say, but of course learnt the manager side maybe so much with Pep. And that's why I loved him from day one, because he had the Wenger from the playing days and Pep from the managing days. And for me, you couldn't have any two better managers, unless Ferguson was around at the time. But I listen, you can't not love what Pep has done. But I would say, Anthony, it's not that hard when you can buy who you want. And I'm not going to make this an anti-City podcast or anything. I'm proud that Declan has chosen to come and fight for the championship and not win it easy, because he could have done what many players have done and gone there. Um, but what I find interesting is when you said a lot of people, non-Arsenal, wanted us to win. It didn't feel like that last season. Social media, especially, really weirdly wanted City, and I could never understand it. And it felt like commentators really didn't, and I don't know why. But I feel that this is the difference last year, Anthony, was we needed to beat City and we couldn't beat them. In the 3 matches we played them, because we played them in the Cup, we couldn't beat them. This year, with Declan in the team, if we've got our fit 11 and we don't know who else is coming in, and obviously we've signed Jurian Timber, I don't even know how you say it yet, Jurian Timber. Arteta and Edu are going for it. I'm so proud of what's going on at the club. I've got just this biggest smile the whole time. Everyone that knows me knows I've been an Arsenal fan for 54 years in 2 weeks' time. And everyone in my area where I've grown up, they're all coming up to me saying, "Can't believe you've got Declan. Can't believe he signed for you. What a player." You've got the West Ham fans that are friends of mine that are like, "What a player." And then you've got the West Ham fans on social media that obviously we don't know, that are so salty, Anthony. Honestly, they're so angry he's come to us. And this is no disrespect to West Ham, it really isn't, but we're not on the same level rivalry wise anyway. When you went to the cup final in Prague a few months ago, I was praying for you to win. Now, if that had been Tottenham or Chelsea or anybody else, no way on earth. But most Arsenal fans wanted West Ham to win that. I'm not wrong, am I, Alan and James? Did you want
No,
them to win?
yeah. I mean, I definitely did for my old sort of work colleagues as well, and the people that I got to know at West Ham. But to me, I mean, I've worked across some football partnerships that have involved Tottenham as well, and I've not gone into those as wholeheartedly as I would, the West Ham one. I never saw us as rivals, not in a disrespectful way. I saw us more as like a friendly club. I mean, there was some terrible hooligan stuff that went on in the 80s. I don't tarnish West Ham as the club they are now with any of that. I know some very old Arsenal fans don't like West Ham for that reason, and possibly rightly so. But I don't tarnish West Ham with that. But I think what you're saying, Amanda, on a couple of points, actually just relates to the fact that social media is a terrible place. You know, Anthony thinks that a load of people were Arteta out. I mean, most of the sensible people that questioned him never ever said they wanted him out. They just put up some sort of decent factual questions against him. We had the debate plenty of times, and I think the documentary actually swayed all the people that were asking those questions.
Yeah,
said,
I agree.
There's your answer. Be bought into it. And I want to correct Anthony on something. Look, I am the Arsene Wenger historian and like to correct everything about the guy. And I want to say that he was left with what eventually turned into a championship winning back four that had already won it twice, whereas Wenger left Emery and Arteta with the biggest mess ever. And the fact that Arteta has managed to clean that up, and I think with this particular signing, and possibly even the notes of like marking an end, the fact that Rob Holding is going and Granit Xhaka's going, there's no one else there that's left from the Wenger days, and that's actually a good thing because his last 10 years. The contracts and the players and the signings were terrible. He even had another moan yesterday saying, I didn't have the money to spend. You did. You spent it wrong. And that's why you lost your job. Everyone's grateful for what you did. You were amazing in the first 10 years.
I think you're forgetting El Neni still with the club, Alan.
Oh, El Neni, he's still there.
Is he not gone? I thought he'd gone. No.
Yeah, no. I've got some questions. Let's bring in some of the questions, Anthony. Right. So Simon Gregory said, Top man Anthony helped my daughter at Walton Academy and brought Rice down to give them a talk. How lovely.
You know, and again, thank you, Simon. Very nice of you to mention that. It's you know, that's the type of guy that Declan is. I mean, he came down to watch some games and also speak with the youngsters, and just partake and get involved. And that's the type of, again, if you build that relationship with Declan, he will give, he'll help, you know, and you'll see him now around Arsenal Football Club and how he will not buy into it because he already has, but you know, how he will become the football club. And that's what West Ham loves so much about Declan. And that's what everyone that knows Declan and loves Declan, that's what we know he's about. And those kids, you know, those memories that he gave them back then, can you imagine? That was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Can you imagine them all sitting there watching now and he's gone for £105 million and all be going, God, do you remember that? You know, and it's what they're all sitting there thinking now.
Arsenal are going to make their money back in shirt sales alone. Let me tell you, for him. Phil Macker, welcome back to the show, Phil. Historically, Hammers fans don't like their players moving on to bigger clubs. So what kind of reception will Declan get at the London Stadium, Ant?
That is a good question. That is a very good question.
There was a video released with Declan the other day and it was online. And I think if anyone watched it, it sent, you know, a young man sent me this, a friend of mine. It sent goose pimples, literally shockwaves through my body from when he made his debut to what he's achieved and what he's given that football club. Coming to the club as a 14-year-old, going on to play as many games as what he has, captaining the football club. You know, I've been very fortunate to have a relationship with him over the years and his family and friends and been a part of his development. As I say, a very small fragment, but you know, taking that away from it, you would really like to think that for me, they'd understand that for me, he's got to play Champions League football, number one. Yeah. He has to play Champions League football. Yes, there's the London rivalry in the respect of his move to another London club. Anyone that knows Declan also knows how family orientated the young man is. So staying in London, I think, is an extremely important thing for him. And the most important thing is, I think, let's take our Hammers hats off here. You've got a very exciting young side at Arsenal Football Club. Like you said, you got your poster boy in Saka. You know, now you got Declan. It's exciting times at Arsenal, and I really hope he gets the reception that I believe he deserves because he's been brilliant for West Ham. He's in the games I've watched, how he has carried that side. You know, Al mentioned it. He's, you know, and I don't want to name names or name players because it'd be wrong of me, but any West Ham player in that changing room or anyone involved in that environment, how he has carried that side this season and seasons gone by and how we managed to stay up this year was, you ask any West Ham fan with 10, 15 games, we thought we were gone.
I think
but there was one man on that pitch that, because he'd go and make a tackle or because he'd give that extra 10, 20, 25% of energy, it would have that knock-on effect to the other players in the team. So I think every West Ham fan has got to remember the fact that that young man and his energy and what he's given us has maintained our Premier League status. And not just that, but also we've managed to lift a European trophy, which many West Ham fans didn't ever genuinely believe we'd ever see it in our lifetime. So I really hope he gets the reception he deserves, because I think he's been outstanding for the football club.
Well, he nicked the ball off Party, didn't he? We were 2-0 up, weren't we, at the time, and he nicked the ball off Party. That was the one away game I was with the Arsenal fans this year at West Ham. And I could
Me and
see
Dad were talking about it earlier. We're talking about it. I spoke to him. Sorry to interrupt you. We excuse me. There you go. But me and Dad were talking about it earlier. The first 15 minutes in that game, any West Ham fan would look at it and think we could get done here. I actually took my partner to her first game, and she came to watch it. And I said to her after 15, 20 minutes, I said, do you know what? I think we might go back into the hospitality, because I don't think I can generally watch the rest of this game. And obviously she was quite pleased, because we would have gone down to the bar and she could have had a drink. So she was, I think she was half hoping that we would. And then, Declan took the game by the scruff of its neck, literally, and started pressing it, getting after it, and changed the whole dynamics of that game. And coming away with a 2-2 was quite incredible. And actually, she was very good luck, because then she came to the Southampton game and we won against Southampton. So she's watched 2 games this season. So West Ham fans will be hoping that she comes to many more next season.
Well, it's interesting. There's a West Ham fan in the Al, 1 second. There's a West Ham fan in the chat called Coco saying without Deck we would have been gone. And he also said before, welcome to the show, Coco, as well. He also said before, or she said before, that he'll get a good reception because he's respected, and of course he did. He run the show. However, I just think, Anthony, you're not on social media. You're only on LinkedIn, so you don't see it all and everything that goes on, and all the West Ham fans coming for us, and and I understand it in a way. It's not as bad as when Sol Campbell came across. That's for sure. Because it was Tottenham and Arsenal, but I do get it. It's not easy watching your big stars go, and he is massive for you, and I do believe that. Sorry, Al, go on.
No, I was just going to refer to, and I think it might have been the lead into the question about what kind of reception he's going to receive, because Paul Ince left the club and went to Manchester United, and Rio Ferdinand left the club and went to Leeds. They both left in pretty disrespectful circumstances for West Ham. I believe Ince was pictured in a United shirt. Shoot magazine had done a photo shoot, and he'd put the shirt on, and he got a bad reception every time he came back since. I think Rio Ferdinand said stuff about the money when he went to Leeds, and it didn't quite resonate with the West Ham fans, and they thought that they'd been disrespected by him. And I think there's been a few others down the years, that none of them sort of come to my mind off the top of my head. But I think one of the big things here is he's done it the respectful way, and there is a massive difference between your social media fan who, whoever's shouting rubbish is probably going to be an idiot on there. There are sensible people, you will find them, but your match-going fan should be in that London Stadium next year, totally respecting what Declan Rice did for them. And he might get the odd funny sort of like the banter side of being booed and things like that, which I think is fine. And I always recall the night that Cesc Fabregas became a man against Patrick Vieira at Highbury against Juve, and we were all sort of worried about seeing Patrick Vieira come back in the shirt of another team, because he was a god to all of us, and we wanted to respect him, and we wanted to be sort of, we didn't want to boo him or anything like that. And the circumstances of the game played out that actually, people almost felt sorry for Vieira at the end of the game because of how good Fabregas was that night. So I think you can get sort of a level of respect and banter that doesn't cross into being completely disrespectful and not highlighting the achievements that Rice has had for the club. Because, as Anthony said, that I think it was a 4-0 defeat away at Brighton this season. They went 2-1 for relegation, and it didn't look like any other team were going to go and help them out by being worse. and they just dragged themselves out towards the end with 3 wins in 5, and that's what got them out. And the point against Arsenal was big, and I actually went back to hospitality in that game, and I wondered if Anthony was digging at me because he found me up there about 10 minutes after the game. So I went in after the second West Ham goal because I was actually sitting with the West Ham fans. I couldn't handle it anymore. So I went and sat in and watched it on the TV, and then Anthony came in. But he doesn't do gloating. But
it felt like a loss, didn't it? It really felt like a loss that day.
Loss, yeah.
Because you're right, Anthony. The first 20 minutes, it was like we were, like the All-Stars. And then it just fell. And again, Declan played a massive part. He just took the ball off Partey, and then you went and scored. I've just got a couple of questions that I want to get in. I don't want to miss these from the chat room. Emerson Allen Cozier, welcome back. For Anthony, does any of Arsenal's academy players in the under-21, will they have a long-term future? If you know any of them, of course.
I can't unfortunately comment on that because I don't know many.
Okay, that's fair enough.
So I mean, if you were to say names, of course I'd be as honest as I could, but without specific names I couldn't tell you, so sorry.
Okay, next one, Karen Russell.
But as a football club, of course, they would give them the opportunity under Arteta, of course.
Oh God, yeah. I think they come through. I'm just so excited for every stage of our academy, reserve, squad. Oh, right. What is the overall feeling at West Ham? Are they happy for him or upset he's gone and where he's gone? We haven't really touched on that. Happy for him, upset that he's gone, and is it more that would they have been okay if he'd have gone to City?
For me, I'm as I say, like for knowing the boy for as long as what I have, whatever decision he would have made, I would have been happy for him. I know his family, I know him, and as I said, been a part of his development. So any decision I know would have been the right one for him and his young family. So I would have been extremely supportive of that, whether it had been City or whether it had been Arsenal. But I think from the vibe now of him, just hearing you three talk about how excited you are about him coming to the football club and the sense of and the vibe around the place, it's he's made the right decision, and I think he's gone to the right football club for sure.
Yeah. If Karen means that from a club point of view, then I think they are happy because David Sullivan did say at the end of last year, he said, look, Declan's going to cost himself loads of money by not signing a deal with West Ham that puts him on a higher wage. And we've respected the fact that he's going to try his heart out for the rest of the end of the season. And obviously that turned into avoiding relegation and also winning a trophy. So I think the hierarchy at West Ham, the people behind the scenes, the manager, the chairman, the board of directors, I think they will all be happy for him because he decided to stick it out, battle, and a historic milestone for the club, then moving on. I think they'll all be delighted for him.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing for the West Ham fans is now, sorry to come in, I think that every West Ham fan now will be asking, how are we now going to spend the money? I think that's now the question. I think that, okay, Declan's gone, he's been great for us, but I think that's 105 million obviously from the transfer, not obviously all up front. You've then got money from the Europa, you then have the Premier League money. I think what West Ham fans will be looking for now is from the board and from Moyes and from everyone behind the scenes as to what we're going to bring in, because I think looking at it, if we don't add 4 or 5 players to that current existing group going into Europe, I think this season is going to be another struggle for us. But we've got to recruit wisely, not spend inappropriately, and choose the right characters for the football club, the right ones that will fit, what we're about.
I've got a question from Karen Russell. This is for you, obviously, Anthony. Do you think Jared Bowen will take on the Rice mantle?
I think Jared's been fantastic. I mean, when he first comes to the club, and I was excited. because he could score a goal. You know, he always looks a threat. He's got fantastic energy out of possession like Declan has. And I think if you're a West Ham fan and you're watching it from the side and you see, you know, where he said about Declan going nicking the ball off Partey and front foot and getting after the ball. And when I used to watch West Ham sides, when my dad played, you know, the high energy sides, exciting front foot, and, you know, a player like Jared Bowen excites the fans because he's got that ability without the ball to get after it, and not just that, when he's got it, create and score goals. And, you know, especially his finish in the final under pressure, that late on to take it, you know, that was a hard skill. It's a very hard skill at a very high intense moment, and he showed his quality. So I've got no doubt in his step up, Jared. He's good for the football club, and he's performed, especially in the running, he's performed very well.
And he's on fire, but I won't sing the next bit.
Well,
yeah, definitely don't.
I was going to say, part of the next bit is my next name drop, because obviously I know the Dyer family very well, and but I've met Jarrod through them and the work that I've done at West Ham, and he is, again, like Dec, from a good family, properly grounded, has been through all the motions in football, but knows exactly his history. And I actually think he'll be the big figurehead for the club next season, and a fan favourite. I mean, he already was a fan favourite just behind Dec, and I think he'll take on that mantle. So it's a good question, Karen, and I think he will. Yes, totally.
Okay. I've got one question left that I'm going to do towards the very end. But Cooks, have you got anything else you'd like to ask?
Honestly, no. I think you guys have done a really good job of covering it. I think, just from my point of view, I've not been this excited about a signing in God knows how long. I know a lot of people are comparing it to the Ozil one and how, you know, euphoric that was at the time. But for me, I like I went back to before, culturally, he just embodies everything that I feel like Arsenal are doing well at the moment. And he just seems like the player that is going to slot so seamlessly into this team. I love the idea of Caicedo in January, but would he have the kind of aura that someone like Declan Rice does? Just watching his first interview, just the first line that he comes out with, the first sentence, is just, it epitomizes the type of character, the type of human being he is. So I think, in terms of what we're doing as a football club, on and off the pitch, he is such a welcome addition. And I get what you're saying previously about a bit of the bitterness from West Ham fans. I think maybe there's that slight frustration that it wasn't too long ago that West Ham finished above us. So there might be that slight bit of resentment that we were kind of on a level playing field not too long ago. But again, you know, I've got the utmost respect for West Ham. They are one of those traditional clubs that have always, you know, been in and around the Premier League. You know, myself and you, Amanda, we're from a West Ham area, so we know the club very well. So I mean, I wish them all the best. I'm not wishing for them to go down. Like you said before, I was really pleased that they got their hands on a European trophy. And yeah, I don't think there's any need for any rivalry between the two. I think we're going to take a great player and make him even greater.
The thing is, I think why there might have been a little bit of it, because it dragged on so long on social media. There was 2 weeks of bantering, and then all of a sudden West Ham were coming at us and going, he's going to City, he's going to City. And it just sort of carried on. Anthony doesn't see any of this. But it is true. I grew up very close to the West Ham ground, literally 15 minutes away. It should have been my club. It was never going to be my club, not with my dad involved, who's the biggest gooner on the planet. But I've always been in a West Ham area, so I know the feeling, and, you know, the East End and all that. And it is a very big traditional club, and we've never had any rivalry. We've never hated in the way that we do with Tottenham, and now, over the years, Chelsea. But the biggest signing for me, I think probably, and Alan might agree because he's my age, maybe Bergkamp. Bergkamp was unbelievable. It was just, I mean, beyond world class. And I think I'm just as excited, the Bergkamp, the Omri, you know, that sort of era, and then Sol Campbell. But that was just funny. That was just banter the whole time.
But the thing is, with do you know what? Obviously, Bergkamp and Henry, what we know now, would mean, obviously, we got to be excited about what they did for the club and where they were. But let's remember, both of them had failed in Serie A. They hadn't set the world on fire. So we got Bergkamp from Inter Milan because he was failing in the double deal with Platt, and the Thierry Henry one was. And I'm going to praise Wenger now. So look, I am balanced when I talk about Wenger. Was Arsene Wenger seeing his potential when he worked with him in France, and then saying, right, if you can't succeed in Serie A where they're sticking you out on the wing, I'm going to stick you out on the wing, but also give you a more forward role, and then creates one of the best players the Premier League has ever seen. So that's those were the golden Wenger years where he's plucking players like that. But we wouldn't have been that excited, and I really don't think Bergkamp was an exciting name at the time, but he wasn't coming in the kind of form that Deck's coming in. Deck's England form, Deck's West Ham form. The fact he's a proven Premier League player. I would have it more on the sort of Campbell level for the pure sort of joy and the fact that he's proven in the Premier League. One thing I was going to say is, and I've got a question for Anthony, but I'm going to sort of seed it. Now, Deck has a really good discipline record for playing that position. I think it's only in games against Liverpool he used to get booked all the time. And then last season, the last 2 seasons, he's been booked about 6 times per season. In his position, I think that's really good, and it's mostly in the games against the sort of other big teams that he's picked up bookings when West Ham in a bit of a battle. So I think that's a strength, and I was going to highlight one minor weakness. His first goal came against Arsenal. He struck it from out just inside the box. It was a great goal. His goal scoring hasn't been that good, percentage terms, game by game, and his penalties are poor. Now, I love him. If I was going to say one weakness, because we've got to be balanced here, he's not a good penalty taker, but he won't be anywhere near penalties. But he just needs to slightly up his scoring. Do you think he will in a more offensive team, Anthony?
When you look at West Ham's game, I'll get quite technical and tactical. We played extremely deep. So we played extremely deep. We allowed teams onto us. We're not very dynamic at the back, so we were very frightened of teams getting in behind us, and we sat back. Now, with that, Deck is a lot deeper. So, he got quite a bit of criticism, and I thought it was quite unfair last season off different pundits, and I would never disrespect those pundits because they've done far more than what I've ever done in the game, and you'll always respect what people say. That I have to say that, but have to take into account that not only has he been doing more than one person's role in that central midfield player, in that central midfield role, he's been taking on 2 roles in there. So it's a hell of a lot of responsibility. It's a hell of a lot of coverage. He's been playing a lot deeper. He's been having to play in every game because we need him. He has to play in every game. He can't afford a rest. He can't afford to come off the last 20 minutes or rest a game because we need him. Arsenal will be playing a whole lot higher up the field than what West Ham United have. They'll be playing more front foot football, so be pressing from the front, which will allow the back 4 to get higher, which will then mean Declan can get higher. So what we'll start to see from Declan, and what you'll start to see from Declan, is his ability to find a pass in a more advanced area. And don't be surprised if you see more shots from 25, 30 yards that work the goalkeepers, because he's going to be higher up the field. And I know it's quite a technical, tactical point, but if you have been a West Ham fan this year, they've been extremely frustrated of how deep we've sat. And with that protective screen that Declan supplies, that means that he has to sit there. And with now the screen that will be applying for those 2, that will increase, because working with him like I have one-to-one and individually, there aren't a lot of better ball strikers than Declan Rice in the Premier League. He strikes a fantastic ball. So it's a big statement, but it's a true statement. It's a statement of fact that young man is a fantastic ball striker, and you're going to see more of that now at Arsenal Football Club.
And that makes perfect sense. That really does. And I think we're going to see it. Maybe not this season. He's got to get used to that he's going to play so much more forward. But the next season might be.
I think so. And that's sort of why I asked the question in that way, framed it in that way, because I was hoping that was going to be the answer.
The one West Ham fan in the
Cheers, Al.
the one West Ham fan in the chat is agreeing with everything you're saying. It's so nice to have different fans on this channel. We do often get that. Okay, so we've gone over an hour. There is no way you're not coming back, Anthony, because we could listen to you all day, and someone's just said that into
Thank
the
you.
chat. So you're definitely coming back. But I'm going to end it on this question, okay? And I think this is just, you can answer this. Question for Anthony: does this signing raise the bar for Arsenal? What is he going to bring to the club? Thank you, Carl.
What will he bring to the club? He's a winner. The young man's a born winner. I mean, you've seen what he's done last year in a struggling West Ham United side, but his energy, his enthusiasm, his willingness to want to win, and not just that, to want to be better. What you'll see with him and what Arteta will love, it'll be, like Al said, at all them functions and all those other bits, he's the last one there. He's the first one there at training. He's the last one gone. You know, what you've signed in him is you signed a leader. He will lead by example off the field, on the field. And he's that player that will bridge the gap between yourselves and Manchester City, because Declan Rice has not had the ability to go toe for toe with other midfield players because he's been going into battle with not the right tools, with not the right weapons. This season, Declan Rice goes into battle with some of the best players in the Premier League at a football club of which he's looking to challenge. So I'm extremely excited for Arsenal. I'm extremely excited for Declan, because I think this next stage of his career is going to be an extremely exciting one, because the biggest thing that will benefit out of all of this is the England national team. Because seeing Declan develop now with this type of style and how Gareth likes to play as well, with how Arteta likes to play, I think that, you know, you're going to see a better player in the middle of the field for Arsenal this year. You're going to see a better player in the middle of the field for England this year. And I think it's going to bring success to our country as well. And it's quite a deep, intense answer, but it's factual and it's real, because the young man is talented. He's English, and you signed a fantastic English talent at Arsenal Football Club.
Wow. Brilliant. Honestly, Anthony, you have just been so fantastic. Thank you, Alan, for introducing me.
I said he would be.
You did. You did. You're
He's
definitely
a good coach as well.
Good coach, good guy. And thank you for giving us nearly an hour and 10 minutes of your time, Anthony. And I've loved it. Absolutely fantastic. Cooks, any last words before we say goodbye?
No, Anthony, thank you ever so much for coming on, mate. If I wasn't already excited about Declan Rice, I mean, you know, my head's on the verge of exploding right now. So, yeah, just to reiterate everything I've said, I can't wait for him, and I hope, you know, he brings so much success to Arsenal. And yeah, to go on your point as well about him being such an English talent, and he's going to, you know, raise the bar at international level. It's worth remembering that, you know, it's 10 years ago that we spoke about having a British core at Arsenal with the likes of Carl Jenkinson and Kieran Gibbs, and now here we are with Declan Rice and Bukayo Saka. I mean, this club is really, you know,
and Emil
landed on good fortunes. And Smith Rowe, yeah, Ben White, Aaron Ramsdale, Eddie Nketiah, if we're including him, Reece Nelson. I mean, I know a lot of people don't care about the English side of things, but for me, I feel quite passionately about having a lot of English players within the team. And yeah, like I say, him and Saka just poster boys for Arsenal and England now.
Wow. We're so excited, Anthony, about Declan Rice coming, and I'd love him to, even if you could just pass on a message to him that all Arsenal fans are beyond excited, because we really are, and thank him for joining our club. I honestly can't wait to see him at the Emirates. First game of the season. Right, everybody in the chat room, you have been fantastic. I've got so many comments, Anthony, everyone's saying how fantastic you are. I wish I could do two jobs, put them up and talk to you at the same time. Alan, thank you so much. Absolutely brilliant.
Pleasure.
You'll be back on next season.
I'd love to be. Yeah, we can
absolutely
continue the Ødegaard debate.
We're not even starting about Ødegaard, because I'll tell you now, if I spoke to Anthony about Ødegaard, he would not agree with you. However,
I know. I just want to say Anthony, one of your pupils is watching because Matthew Alger
They
says
are.
great
He is.
show.
Yeah, he is one of your
Thanks,
pupils.
Matty. I'll go light on you this week, Matt. Thanks for putting that.
And Carl says, Anthony, you better bloody come back on the show. Great guest. What a podcast, Karen is saying. You know, it's fantastic. I'm always appreciative of people coming on, especially non-Arsenal fans. You've given us a real good insight into Declan Rice. We're all even more excited now. It's like a kid at Christmas time. Anthony, you have been absolutely brilliant. I'd love to thank you so much, and honestly loved every minute. I cannot believe it's like 10 past 10 and I could sit listening to you all night. Guys in the chat room, thank you again. I'm back next Sunday for my last summer show because you've all been asking for him, and Dad is coming back.
Hey.
Yes, my dad is coming back with the rest of the family. I've got 4 family members and me trying to cope. It's going to be like a car journey to the well, it would have been Highbury and back. Cousins and my dad and me in control. Anthony, you've got no idea what this. My dad is the biggest gooner on the planet, hence me. But Chris is back Wednesday evening. Talk about spoiling you lot this summer. He's got 2 fabulous guests on. He's got Dave Seager and he's got Charles Watts. You're not going to want to miss that on Wednesday evening at 7:30. So tune in for that one. Again, thank you, Anthony. Alan, thank you. Thank you, Cookie, for coming back. Listen, everyone, it's just been fantastic. I'll be back next Sunday. I'm going to have to do Sunday at 4:00, I'm afraid, because one of my cousins lives in Perth in Australia and he was very upset I didn't ask him onto the last family show. 4 p.m. next Sunday. Wow, what a show. Declan Rice, welcome to the Arsenal. Good night, everyone.